He came to the bank for something simple, something most people do without a second thought. But the moment he rolled through the doors, the atmosphere shifted. Eyes followed him, judgments formed, and one decision, made in a matter of seconds, would humiliate him in a way no one in that room would forget. What started as a routine visit quickly turned into a moment that exposed prejudice, power, and a truth no one saw coming. Because the man they underestimated wasn't who they thought he was. And what happened next would leave the entire bank in stunned silence. Marcus had built his life on quiet resilience. Every morning, he woke before sunrise, managed his responsibilities, and moved through the world with a calm determination that came from years of being underestimated. Life hadn't always been easy. An accident years ago left him in a wheelchair, but it never defined him. If anything, it sharpened his focus and strengthened his resolve. He believed in structure, discipline, and dignity. People who knew him saw a man who valued respect and gave it freely. Strangers, however, often saw only what was in front of them. The chair, the silence, the assumptions. That afternoon, Marcus headed to a local bank he'd visited before. It was supposed to be routine, quick, simple, forgettable. Just another errand in a long list of responsibilities. The lobby buzzed with normal life, people checking phones, quiet conversations, the hum of printers and footsteps echoing across the floor. But moments after he entered, something shifted. A glance lingered too long. A tone felt colder than expected. A hesitation that didn't match the situation. Marcus noticed. He always noticed. Years of navigating the world had taught him how quickly ordinary moments could turn uncomfortable and how easily judgment could appear where respect should have been. Still, he stayed calm, rolling forward, expecting professionalism. Nothing more, nothing less. What he didn't know was that within minutes, a single interaction would expose more than prejudice. It would reveal assumptions so deep, so automatic, that no one in that bank was prepared for what would happen next. Marcus rolled up to the counter, calm and composed, his hands resting lightly on the wheels. He had rehearsed this moment in his mind like any other routine errand, polite greeting, quick transaction done. But before he could even finish introducing himself, the teller's expression tightened. Her smile didn't disappear completely, it just changed. Stiffer, forced, careful. Her eyes dropped to the wheelchair, then back to his face, scanning as if trying to piece together a story she'd already decided on. The questions came quickly, too quickly. Not about the transaction, not about how she could help. They were about verification, extra identification, repetition, a tone that suggested suspicion rather than service. People in line began to notice. A man coughed awkwardly. Someone shifted their weight. The air grew heavier, thicker, like the room itself was holding its breath. Marcus remained calm. He'd faced moments like this before, moments where respect had to be earned twice as hard. He answered each question steadily, offering documents, explaining clearly. But the more composed he remained, the more impatient she seemed to become. Her voice sharpened, her posture stiffened, and then came the glance, subtle but unmistakable, toward a coworker nearby. It was the kind of look that said something was off. The coworker approached slowly, whispering something Marcus couldn't hear. Both sets of eyes landed on him again, lingering longer this time. Judging. Measuring. The teller's fingers hovered over the keyboard, hesitating. "I'm not sure we can process this right now," she muttered, her voice loud enough for others to hear. A pause. Then silence spread across the counter. Marcus felt it, the shift from inconvenience to humiliation. The quiet assumptions filling the space. The way people watched without saying a word. He wasn't being treated like a customer anymore. He was being treated like a problem. A supervisor was called over. Another pair of eyes. Another scan from head to toe. Another moment of hushed conversation that excluded him, even though he was the one right there. The tension tightened like a wire. Marcus's chest rose slowly as he steadied himself. He had done nothing wrong. Said nothing wrong. Yet every second stretched longer, heavier, as if he had to prove he deserved to be there at all. And then came the comment. Quiet, but sharp enough to cut. A remark about people trying to take advantage. About making sure everything checks out. Not directed at him directly, but close enough that everyone understood. The room shifted again. A few customers looked away. Others leaned in, curiosity overtaking discomfort. Marcus felt the weight of it pressing down. The judgment, the dismissal, the assumption that he didn't belong in a place like this unless something was wrong. Still, he didn't raise his voice, didn't argue, didn't react the way they might have expected. Instead, he reached calmly into his bag and pulled out something else. Something they hadn't asked for. Something they weren't expecting. And the moment it touched the counter, everything changed. Marcus placed the document gently on the counter. Not rushed, not defensive, just steady. The teller glanced down, clearly expecting another form of identification, another paper to question. But as her eyes moved across the page, the color drained from her face. Her fingers froze above the keyboard. The supervisor leaned in, squinting, then straightened abruptly, his posture shifting from authority to uncertainty in an instant. The document wasn't just proof of identity. It was proof of ownership. A quiet ripple spread across the counter, then outward into the lobby. The same people who had been whispering moments earlier fell silent, watching the realization unfold. The teller's lips parted as if to speak, but no words came. Her earlier confidence, her suspicion, her cold tone, collapsed under the weight of what she was now seeing. Marcus didn't say a word. He didn't need to. The supervisor cleared his throat, suddenly attentive, suddenly respectful. His voice changed, softer, careful, apologetic in a way that felt rehearsed and too late. But the damage had already been done. Because in that moment, everyone saw it clearly. The assumptions, the hesitation, the humiliation he'd been forced to endure before anyone bothered to look closer. Not because of what he did, but because of who they thought he was. The room felt smaller, tighter, as if the walls themselves were pressing in. The teller stepped back from the counter, her hands trembling, her eyes unable to meet his. A moment ago, she had held power over the interaction. Now, that power had shifted completely. Marcus finally looked up, his expression calm but unshakable. Not angry, not loud, just certain. And somehow, that silence said more than any confrontation ever could. Because the truth was now impossible to ignore. The question wasn't whether they had misjudged him. It was how many times they had done this before to people who didn't have proof powerful enough to stop it. He left the building the same way he came in, steady, composed, silent. But inside, something lingered. Not anger, not shock, just a familiar weight. The kind that comes from knowing this moment wasn't rare. That for many others, there would be no document placed on a counter, no instant change in how they were treated. Outside, life carried on. Cars passed. Doors opened and closed. People laughed, talked, checked their phones. The world didn't stop for what had happened inside those walls. But the meaning of it stayed. Because this wasn't just about one bank, or one teller, or one man in a wheelchair. It was about how quickly assumptions form, how easily dignity is withheld, how often respect is given only after someone proves their worth. And the truth is, not everyone gets that moment. Not everyone gets to reveal something powerful enough to force the world to see them differently. So the question lingers long after the doors close and the apologies fade. How many people walk into rooms every day already judged, already dismissed, and never get the chance to change the story? If this moment made you feel something, anger, sadness, recognition, don't let it stop here. Share it. Talk about it. Notice it when it happens in real life. Because real change doesn't start with grand gestures. It starts the moment we choose to see people before we decide who we think they are.